Hi, and welcome to Black on the Mat, the space where culture, community, and yoga intersect through our lived experiences. We're your host. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Saisha. Join us on this journey to bring representation and shed light on often overlooked stories on the yoga mat.
We're creating an accessible roadmap into yoga for Black people, building a community in this predominantly white space.
And letting folks already into yoga know that we're here.
Welcome back to Black on the Mat. Thank you for joining us again. Today we have the honor of having an old classmate of mine, Timothy. We did our YTT together. Thank you so much for coming on, Timothy.
And YTT is yoga teacher training.
Oh yes, yoga teacher training. I'm sorry if we didn't cover it enough 2 weeks ago. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
I love it. So we're talking all about mindfulness today, and I'm curious from you in your own words, like, what is mindfulness like, and why should people have it part of their daily life? And like,
Yeah. So for me, mindfulness really is about presence. It's about an ability and a willingness to be present with the life that is in front of us. And so I guess by formal definition, most definitions of mindfulness really talk about the ability to be with what is in the absence of judgment. And what's really interesting is that often there's this image of what it looks like. It might be, this person sitting in a particular posture, maybe their hands are doing some things, and all of these things tend to fall under this idea of mindfulness. But the reality is that mindfulness is a practice that really is unconditional, and it meets us exactly where we are, inviting us to be present with, again, the life that is in front of us.
I think that that's a pretty, honestly, straightforward definition. I am curious of how you transitioned into mindfulness.
Yeah. The transition part, I would say transition formally, because and this question is so interesting as I reflect on my journey. I grew up in Flint, Michigan. I was a little kid. I was always like this very naturally curious boy. Like, I was very connected to nature. I would do all the decencies of going to grandma's house and say hello to everybody and all of that fun stuff. But my first action was like, I wanted to go into the backyard, and I wanted to be in the backyard, climbing trees. I'm in the dirt. I'm at the creek. I'm catching frogs. I'm doing all the things. Right. So there was always like this natural draw to nature, because what I find is that nature really has always taken me out of the space of like either needing to know an answer or just give me the space to just be. Now, that was always nurtured, by my family. I grew up with very supportive parents. And what's also interesting is that I had this strong affinity towards rocks. And I called them rocks when I was growing up. And my dad would literally take me to the rock store. and and at the rock store, I would pick out different rocks. And I don't remember reading about any metaphysics around stones or gems or any of that stuff, but there was always this draw to it. So I had a rock collection as a kid. And so fast forward many, many years, my curiosity has taken me into a lot of different places, this willingness to be open-minded with situations as they arise. And so in a formal sense, I would say that my practice really started when I used writing as a tool for reflection. Writing for me had always been a tool for reflection because, again, as a kid with really, really big questions, I didn't always feel like I could ask those questions. Whether it was questions around religiosity or sexuality or so many other things, I didn't feel like I could ask these questions, so I would write. And again, fast forward to the place where I am now, I also didn't know that I could live from this place. And so that's really the exciting, like, sort of evolution that is taking place now. So I would say that mindfulness kind of caught up with me in the traditional sense, and I'm just living from that place now.
It's interesting because you were saying earlier about how mindfulness is being present without judgment. I personally feel like I is something I struggle with, even though I've been taught in some of these different things. Like we're so quick to judge ourselves. We're so quick to judge similar things. We're so quick to, if you don't have these yoga practices to quiet the mind, why, especially as a Black man, do you think it's important for us to be practicing mindfulness?
The first thing that comes up for me is really around what we learn to sort of filter the world through. In other words, our, you know, our thoughts, our beliefs, these are all almost like sunglasses that we have the opportunity to filter the world through. And so I'll use myself as an example. Growing up, you know, I would hear messaging of um, what it meant to be a Black man, right? And listen, for better and for worse, because I would hear it all, and all of these things become almost imprinted right into our psyche on a deeper level. But again, they become filters of what we look at, how we view the world. And so if one of those filters that we're looking out into the world through is one that says that, you know, everybody's judging me, or that I am not as smart as everyone else, or, you know, there are many layers to this. But if this is the filter that we're looking into the world through, then we are more likely to react from that place. When we can slow down, when we can just pause the record for a moment, we can start to see what else is also true. And when we start to live from that place, it gives us this spaciousness to make different choices. And so instead of reacting to situations or circumstances, not saying that judgment will not come up, right? Mindfulness is not about perfection. It is about practice, and it's about practicing over and over and over again. And so when we take that space to simply pause, start to ask questions, remove ourselves from kind of the thick of it, we might start to see that, you know, other things are true as well. So I think one of the things that come up really, like it's really prescient for me, is around education and how uh, quick we are, especially in some of the more modern and traditional systems, to really label learning disabilities or even the speed of learning. Like when we start to say things like, you know, oh, he's a slow learner,
Hmm.
you know, I think this starts to carry a lot of baggage. And so, you know, when we look at the instances of Black boys who are in special education, or Black boys who are going through the juvenile system, like these things are really heavy labels that are often slapped on. And so even with a practice like mindfulness, a person in their own individual nature can start to, again, create the space between this is what they told me I am, but what's real and what's true for me.
No, and I love that. I love the imagery, I guess, of creating space and holding your own space, right? Because we've talked about it on several episodes here that like there is what space here was created for us,
Mm,
right? We've been in so many spaces that like, especially as yogis, as yoga teachers, as practitioners, it's just like the wellness world is so white, so full of these like random labels. They've made their own decisions. So to take your experience as a Black male and say like not just in the wellness room, in the yoga room, in whatever, in life, right? Take that space, create the space for yourself so that your own thoughts can resonate. You can hear yourself. You can hear yourself process. You can dissonate from where whatever you were labeled as and take ownership with the practice of mindfulness.
yeah.
I think it's absolutely beautiful.
So how do you do it like how do we bring this into everyday practice? Like literally, how are you bringing this mindfulness into your everyday life, and how can our people, because a lot of people are like, I'm too busy for this. I don't have time to sit on a yoga mat. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to whatever it is. They're always an excuse. But so Is there an easy way for busy people to add mindfulness to their life?
Yeah, well, first of all, that word easy, like I feel
Oh,
like, no, it's interesting because um that's one of those words that um again, if there's almost this idea, and we'll kind of backtrack a little bit. So if one of the lenses that we're looking at the world through is like life is hard, life is a struggle, life is this, life is that, and everything is so, then the idea of it being easy is like there's no way in hell that this can be easy.
facts.
So so
Yeah.
we'll just drop the word easy, and say, well, is there a way that this practice can just meet people where they are? And the answer is yes. The practice can always meet us where we are. This is one of the things that I get really, really excited about, because like I often say that the depths of my practice really came about through like an experience in the subway, to be honest. So I was sitting in the subway one day, and this is, kind of typical New York City rush hour. Um, and anybody who has the experience of riding the train knows that feeling and that sensation of sitting on the train and just like literally like dozing off, like just cannot stay awake. Yet there's almost like this rhythmic nature of it that like your body is going to wake up right at your stop and you'll get off right when you need to. So these types of experiences and sensations are opportunities actually to tune into practice,
Hmm.
because just sitting, say, in a subway, on a bus, we can start to tune into sensations of the body. So one of the things that I like to always start with is, just like if we were, writing a very long novel, it might be important that we have like this foundation, these ABCs. So I like to start with awareness, and I like to expand awareness. And starting with sensations of the body is one way to do that. So literally where a person is standing, where they're sitting, where they're lying down, they can start to tune into the sensations of the body, starting to just notice what's there. Like right now, you might be able to feel your feet on the floor. Maybe you can feel the carpet, or you can feel a sock on your foot, and just that awareness alone starts to expand capacity to hold more. So that's one of the places that I like to start. There's also like this acknowledgement that, when we start to throw in some other things like trauma, whether it be small T trauma or big T trauma, sometimes, listen, starting with aspects of the body may not be the best place, right? And so in some of those instances, there are other sensations that we can start to tune into. Just consider for a moment, like when usually, we see a friend for the first time in a long time, it's like, oh, how are you? Oh, I'm good, all is well. Or and we get in this habitual nature of just good, 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 good. And sometimes that almost disconnects us further and further from what may be, again, real and what's true for us. So there are these opportunities to tune into other sensations, like our sense of balance, our sense of being hungry. All of these are just information. It's all just information and awareness. So I like to start with awareness as a place to really start with everyday practices.
I love that. I think it's needed. And I love the fact that you talked about using the word easy, because as a Black woman and as a person of color, I think we're taught that life has to be hard. So even in us saying easy, we're still perpetuating that pattern. So I appreciate you, Kyle. We'll try not to use easy anymore, because
Well,
I think you just taught me something. So I
wait,
appreciate you
what?
taught me a lot.
Listen, what's interesting about that is I remember sitting in yoga classes,
Hmm.
and there are a couple words that would like short circuit something in my brain. Like it was literally just like WTF. One of the
I need to know
one
what
of
these words are.
no, I think it's information, and it's not a matter of like fixing it or like taking it away, but again, it becomes individual for the practitioner to like get curious about why that's coming up for them in that moment. So one of the words was intention. I never knew what to do with an intention.
Hmm.
I never knew where to go. Like I would sit there and just in my head, I'm just like, all right, this intention. Everybody else has an intention except me. Like I don't know where to put this thing. Um,
What did you do?
and
I'm curious because we do say that all the time.
yeah, I mean, for me, I went to writing.
Hmm.
I went to writing, and I would see what came up for me. And even still, sometimes, like I think the way that I approach intentions are maybe different. Like I think about, I almost have to get this visual of like, okay, this is where I am. This is where I want to be. And then like that space in between is literally like, so you take the word and you break it down in tension. I'm in tension between this and this.
Hmm.
Mm.
Hmm.
I like that as a visual. You see that teacher
Yes,
life just sliding right in there, you know? You can
that's
see
So
it.
good.
so
That's
that has
hilarious.
helped me. That's helped me to just soften around the word. Another one was relax. Like
Mm.
when someone would tell me in a class to relax, I didn't know what, but also what's true is like I was so just tense in my body and disconnected that like I just didn't have the capacity to understand that word.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So relax, roll the hip under. I'm like, under what?
But what are you rolling the hip under? I'm curious. Like where, that's a good question. Where
That
are
is
you
a
rolling
good
the hip
one.
under? Is this a vinyasa thing? Because I'm like, where? Where,
Definitely a
girl,
vinyasa.
where?
But that, I mean, those are words that we definitely use, especially like when you have something physical, something that I explain physical in my body may not work the same in your body. And those are the things that can just like derail a whole practice if I feel confused. And then that adds into my thoughts, and I'm supposed to be releasing my thoughts.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
But I get you on that whole relax thing because when we're so used to being waiting for the next microaggression to happen, it's hard to relax. And so, Sisha, I know you felt this. Like, so it's like relax. I'm like, do you know all the things that are going on in my life? How am I going to relax? I don't have the nanny watching my kids down this, and my husband this other way.
Yeah, yeah. And the same is true like when we live in a world that is, I mean, you just turn on the TV and everything is like, be careful, don't do this, don't go there. Uh, it's danger, 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 danger. So that tension is real. You know what I mean? That feeling of danger, which adds to again the reason why these practices are so important from an everyday perspective, not just waiting for that emergency to happen.
Mm.
Right. And so how can mindfulness help to manage stress and your overall, like, I guess, ability to relax?
Yeah. One, increasing the awareness of the sensations in the body. So understanding where tension is being held and creating the space to soften around that. One of the really fundamental practices of just really being with experiences as they are is um, the breath. So a lot of research suggests that majority of us are walking around breathing very shallow breaths into the upper part of the chest. And from a biological standpoint, this is going to send the signal to the body that there is danger, right? This starts to turn on the sympathetic nervous system. And so the sympathetic nervous system is the one that is more responsible for fight or flight. It's going to start to create the chemistry of the body that says, get out of here, there's danger, etc. So from that perspective, the breath is a really, really important modulator because we can use the breath alone to turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is going to encourage the physical body to rest, to relax, to restore from the inside. And so that's one of the primary ways that, if a person adopted a deep belly breathing practice and they were like, you know what? This is where I am. This is where I am today, and this is where I'm gonna practice, tomorrow, and I'm gonna practice it again when I think about it, and again when I think about it, and you know, that in and of itself would expand so much and it would create so much space. So I think a breathing practice is one that would really help. Another one that comes up is, we were talking about thoughts earlier.
Mhm.
And I mean, of course, there are the thoughts that we're conscious of, but we also are inundated with just information in general. Colors initiate certain thought frequencies, and light initiates certain thought frequencies, and so there's just so much happening, in this space. So, like I was saying earlier, a practice like journaling, create some real estate up here so that there's some clarity. A lot of us are in these transitions, and I mean, I left the traditional classroom in 2021, and I mean, if you had asked me at that point, like, okay, what are you gonna do? No idea. No idea. Put the next foot in front of the other one. Like, that's all I got.
Sometimes it's like that.
and
Listen, that
and
COVID year, that did it. That just
listen,
But it changed all of us. I mean, I feel
yeah.
like in my woo-woo world that it was asking for us to step up, was
Mhm.
asking us to break through what we thought was our path to get on our path. Timothy, you are needed because there's some people are going to resonate with what you are saying in your message. Same thing with Stacia. Some people are going to see you like, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so creating that space, that real estate, the clarity.
Mhm.
Like, I think sometimes there's, like, the goal. People are like, okay, I want a new job. It's like, all right, I hear that. Okay, that's a great goal. It's all fine and well. And then there's like the, when is it gonna get here? Who's gonna bring it? How is it going to come? I need it right now. And sometimes we don't have those answers, and I mean, I've heard, one of my teachers said, the how is not really our job to begin with. And so that can be really difficult to let go of.
Mhm.
So when we just create a space for clarity, where we can lean into a deeper level of trust, I think that's one of the greatest gifts of developing a practice.
I think a huge part of mindfulness for me is
Mm,
surrendering control, which I'm still a work in progress, but I find when I'm able to surrender control more, and I find it when I'm doing mindfulness practice. Seisha knows I always say breath is bay. So when I'm doing my breath work, I can get in these spaces where the clarity comes. But surrender, that control it's something. It's a something.
yeah,
see
yeah.
and that for me, that is exactly why, as much as everything you're saying is absolutely amazing, and like I know so many meditation teachers and I practice and all that stuff, I love the physical asana part. That's what ties it in for me. This is how I get the words to stop running across my head like the news, right? This is how I get that knot in my back because I was so angry that that person said that thing that time, right? And I I work it out. I do enough sun salutations that I'm like, no, 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 okay. Inhale and exhale. And then all of it can come together, right? Like, which they all play their own part, which is part of the reason why this is why you're here on the podcast, why we put the podcast together, why we're putting these episodes together, why we were explaining to people that like mindfulness and yoga and awareness in the body and the ability to get on the mat is for us. It
Hmm.
is not only is it for us, it's from us. We've
Hmm.
talked about that too.
Yeah.
So Timothy, would you be able to guide us through a brief mindfulness exercise that our listeners can follow along with?
Yeah, absolutely. So this particular practice, it's one that I like play around with. I do it in different ways at different times. And what it what I call it is really in it's three parts. So it really invites us into this sense of true presence. And so we'll start this practice, right from where you're seated. I'm going to invite you to just allow your eyes to scan your space. So as your eyes scan your space, you just might start to notice different shapes and textures. You might start to notice thoughts as they come up. And if there's anything that really catch your eye. You can just allow your eyes to rest there. You might also start to notice thoughts as they come up, things that in this moment they might start to call for your attention. Be this reminder that the dishes need to get done. All of a sudden, this is that moment where the dust bunny is calling. And so we're going to say no to those things. So really starting to create space, a boundary. And then if you feel comfortable, you can allow the eyelids to begin to rest. So they might just rest heavy, finding a gentle gaze. And if it's comfortable, you can bring the eyes to close. And I invite you to think about your sacred yes in this moment. A sacred yes may be a connection to yourself, to your breath. And simply feeling the sensations of the body making contact with your seat. And then our mindfulness practice really invites us to, again, be with what is. And so we'll take a moment just to consider what comes next. And then we'll begin to bring this practice to a close by inviting a gentle movement of the fingers and the toes. We'll finish with 3 deep breaths together, exhaling all of the air out, taking a long deep breath in gratitude for this body that moves. Exhale. Taking a long deep breath in to the heart space, for the heart that inspires. Exhale. And taking maybe the longest, deepest breath of the day so far, in gratitude for this breath that sustains. Exhale. Allowing the breath to return to normal. Gently taking in light, coming back into the experience the same way that we went out, just noticing the space.
That was amazing.
Thank you so much, Timothy.
Yes.
You're so welcome.
How can people connect with you? What do you have coming up that where they can learn more and practice, learn how to practice mindfulness in a way that feels good?
Yeah. So I share wisdom, insights, and practices across social media platforms. I'm on Instagram and TikTok and uh, as Mindfulness with Timothy. I also support corporate spaces doing workshops related to managing stress in the workplace. And I share information on LinkedIn relative to that. Coming up, I have my Everyday Mindfulness course, which is a 8-week course that is broken down part theory, more practice into ways that we can incorporate mindfulness into everyday life. And so from that course, you really walk away with a complete toolkit that you can make your own. So enrollment for that course will be starting at the end of July. And then also heading into the fall season, I will be looking to take one-on-one coaching clients through my signature method, the Timothy method, which is kind of broken down into tuning into sensations of the body, implementing daily practices, managing stress, optimizing our environment, training for meaningful breaks, and ultimately harnessing the greatest yield on self-discovery. So I'm really, really excited about that, and look forward to connecting.
That is awesome. And I'm so glad that there's so many opportunities coming up. And as you said, like you can follow him. He posts such great stuff, things for you to gather little nuggets from and take a little breath or sit in a field and enjoy the breeze. Like I love that those moments are just things that you share. I really do appreciate it on my timeline, and I think all of our listeners will as well. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have questions or comments or ideas about mindfulness, please put them in the comments.
Thank you so much.
Ciao. Thank you for joining us today on Black on the Mat.
Let's continue connecting, sharing our stories, and sowing the benefits of having a yoga practice in your life.
Subscribe to Black on the Mat on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
I'm Saisha, and you can find me at Thick Thigh Yoga on all social media platforms and thickthighyoga.com.
I'm Danielle, and you can find me at HelloWell with Danielle on IG, YouTube, and HelloWellWithDanielle.com.